everybody. I wanted to make a video with some singing voice therapy techniques. I want to give you a caveat before I show you these things that singing voice therapy is so patient specific. Obviously, everything we do is patient specific, but especially when it comes to singing, because there's no one tool that works. It really depends on what your singing voice complaints are, what style of singer they are, what the physiology behind the singing voice complaints are. So meaning, is it a lesion, are there nodules, or the polyps that's making the singing voice bad? Is it just muscle tension primarily? Is it a vocal fold paresis, so there's a glottic insufficiency issue? So what we're working towards definitely varies. That being said, and also how the singer is. So are they pop? Are they opera? Are they, stylistic singer? And so there's obviously one efficient way to sing, but the way we do that for every style sort of varies. And so, I pretty much always listen to my patient first, have them sing something for me, and then kind of figure it out on the spot. But that being said, for most people, I incorporate a few of these exercises because they work on efficiency, they work on coordination of respiration and phonation and resonance, and they work on understanding kind of where our sound happens when we're singing. So the first thing I like to do, and I will say I definitely do this for everybody, like muscle tension, lesions, even a paresis, because even though that, we're working on closure for the paresis, their lack of closure, you still want to make sure it's done with good airflow, not with strain. So I take my cup. If you're watching my other videos, I really love Strong Water, and I do just a 3-1. So if you have no idea what that means with the piano, that is like a fa do, solfege. So you put your hands at the starting point, and wherever you start at, the 1, and then the 3, and then the 5, 3, 1. Just have a little basis. So I'm going to do a 3-1. I really like to work top down, meaning 3, 1, not 1, 3, because then you get the nice airflow and initiation at the top, rather than feeling like you have to kind of drag up weight. Now, obviously, singing, you have to do that. So over time, I'll work from the bottom up, but at the beginning, I like to work top down. So we're going to do. So just the same strong phonation. If you don't know how to do this, go watch my other video on the basics of Strong Water and semi-fluted vocal tracts. And so we're just doing it on 3-1. And I like a slide because I like the voice to be gliding through, not switching from one note to the other where the airflow might stop. So we just go up the scale. Etc. Big things are that you want to make sure you're not losing the buzz on your lips or the big bubbles, just like my video on basic strong phonation, and that you're not hearing like a switch. So we don't want that's just holding back air. If the bubbles are decreased, holding back air, you want nice consistent airflow. A big thing with singers is that they'll be like, is this my head voice? Is this my chest voice? Singers love to talk about head voice and chest voice. I'm a singer. When I'm singing, I also talk about my head voice and chest voice. In voice therapy, I do not talk about that. If you have good consistent phonation in the Strong Water, you shouldn't really notice a huge difference, huge head versus chest. You may get some singers as you get higher that are going, because they think it's their chest voice. You can see my bubbles decreased and it sounded strained. It sounded like it was locked in here. Is what you want. Now, as we get higher, if I'm working with a singer with lesions, we often will start hearing something like, so the cutting out of sound, or even I described it as like a scrim, so like a, where there's good bubbles, but it sounds like the voice just won't come out. That could mean that they're not using good forward focus resonance, and they have to engage their body a little bit more. But it more likely means that that area is stiff, and so you're not getting good vibration of the fold. And so I'll tell them, think of this as like you're trying to do the splits, and you can't do the splits because you can feel that like this part of your leg is tight. So you might stop and you'll massage it out. So we're going to stop and we're going to massage it out like this. Big energy, nice good airflow, like you're starting a car engine. So we'll do it here, and on the second note. And you do it as many times until it starts to sound a little easier. And then we go back to the exercise. too much air. You want to have nice engagement so you don't end up straining here. So that's one exercise. Sometimes I do it on a 5-3-1. If I've got a patient that's a little less injured, I'm just trying to get more movement in the singing style. Another thing that I often do is I take our concepts from resonant voice therapy and I put it into singing. And so I take the I have to make sure someone is good at that in speech first. And we're going to put it into singing. 5-3-1 again. I keep everything pretty simple so we don't distract the singer on the melodic things that we're doing. This is not a voice lesson. And see if we can keep that good resonance. Just like resonant voice therapy, you want that release of air as you're starting. So we don't want to get I'm saying an M, so I can still feel the vibration of my lips, but that feels held. That doesn't feel good. That doesn't sound free. Again, you want to have nice engagement here, nice release of air. Often as we start to get higher, we'll start to hear people go. We do not want breathy, we want breathful. Breathy is a totally okay vocal choice if it's a choice. When people and patients just default to it because they're not working things efficiently and coordinating air and resonance and phonation, then we want to point that out because a lot of our singers with muscle tension will have that sort of held breathy quality, and that's why they don't feel good. If you try this with your own voice, it does not feel good. Also, on the contrary, pushy doesn't feel good. That's pushing from here. You want a nice release of air and really focus on the lips. Strong body engagement. Sometimes I'll just go to speech for a second. Forget about singing. Just when I do that, I'm moving between my chest voice and my neck voice and my head voice. You can kind of hear that it sort of switches quality, maybe a little lighter as I get higher. In speaking, we don't really think about that. We do that. I just did it right now, like that. But in singing, we suddenly think that there are two different mechanisms. And so, and obviously there are a lot of things that go into it, but we don't need to think that way. So we want to think sing consistency the whole time. Mum, 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 mum. Just talking on pitch. Mum, 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 mum. Mum, 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 mum. Speech singing is really, really effective. Even for your classical singers who aren't going to use that, having an idea of how to use that nice resonance and that nice engagement without getting too wide and operatic is really, really good for vocal efficiency. So those are two things that I use a lot. One more thing that I will do quite often is, again, sort of like a speech-like quality. So just taking a phrase that has good resonance, good contact. So I come up with different ones all the time, but we can say nowhere. So the N uses a good lingual contact to get that strength and that resonance, and the W keeps it here. And we'll just sort of felt it. Nowhere, more like speaking. If you get your patients that are going nowhere, take that out at first and put that back in later. Nowhere, 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 nowhere. Just talking. Think of sending your voice out. You can think of calling to somebody. Nowhere, nowhere. And feel that nice contact on your mouth. So if it feels unstable and you get someone that's going nowhere, it's cracking, feel the contact first. You need strength from somewhere, but you don't want to push from here. Nowhere. And if it's not working, keep singing out of it. Nowhere, nowhere, nowhere. Bring your voice around and see if you can find that placement. I hope those are helpful. If you have any specific situations and you have questions, let me know, but that's probably a good little general about